atherogenic. This is what's going to cause hardening of the arteries. It's going to cause plaque wall buildup of plaque walls, breakdown of the wall. These are the ones you have to watch out for. And how do they get turned into small dents from the large point? By carbs again. So these are the ones, again, everything, all these risk factors for heart disease are really coming through the increased carb intake. So another thing to really just pay attention for. The one thing I want to talk about, just protein and fat and its effect on carbohydrates. Because I think this is something that's overlooked a little bit too. Your protein and fat intake is going to help to reduce your insulin spike, because they're more of a regulator for it, because it's not going to allow everything to be released into the bloodstream as fast, not going to jack up your blood glucose. And when you hear Taps talk, if you ever listen to him, he always talks about his eating, I think it's 4 pairs a day or something for a couple months. And he says, yeah, I thought I was doing the right thing, just eating a bunch of healthier things. But he doesn't ever talk about, he talks about like eating as a snack. He doesn't talk about eating with anything. So if you might have eaten this, and he talks about the dangers of fructose. Well, if you had this with some fat, with some protein, would it have really had the same effect? I don't know. I mean, it's just one thing that I would like him to take into consideration too. Because, of course, you're looking at maybe if that's going to be just 60 grams of carbs throughout the day total, well, that 60 grams is just being let loose into your body without anything, without any obstruction. So if there's a slower insulin, if there's a slower blood sugar release, insulin levels not going to rise as fast. Just other things to take into consideration when thinking about your carbohydrate intake as well. Any questions?
So one of the things while reading the book and looking at everything was the whole fact of processed and refined sugars and refined. Right. And the only thing I could think about while reading that particular section was the FDA food pyramid. Is the FDA food pyramid become obsolete if you're not eating the right stuff? Like if you're having a bologna sandwich and you've got white bread, Kraft single, and Kraft bologna, are you doing more detriment by eating that than?
So now you said Kraft, and that's kind of brings up a big point with the food pyramid, because who pays? Well, who gives the government a lot of money? Places like Kraft, any like corn producers, soy producers, they're throwing gobs of money at the government.
Our government needs it.
And they may. But
we're in debt.
How is this food pyramid being influenced? It's being influenced by what we think is the healthiest, or who's giving the most money. And I think that's a big part of it. You can't look at just, you can find a study to back up anything, whether good, bad, indifferent, it doesn't matter. You can find those studies. And these companies can pay for those studies. They can say, hey, this is the way to go. And then they can say, hey, you've got to have your 6 to 11 servings of grains. You've got to minimize that fat intake. Do you? It's tough. It's more, it comes down to a lot of who has the most money. And then government subsidies come into play too. The government doesn't want all this food just sitting around, so they're going to try and make it. I mean, we're making corn cheap. We're making soy cheap. So they want to. Then we're making wheat cheap. Hey, keep giving that money as a subsidy. You want to get rid of it. Keep selling it for cheap. If you keep selling it for cheap, rather than giving the subsidies to other things, maybe like grass-fed organic meats, organic veggies, organic fruits, like all that, well, then maybe those would go down. People would be able to afford those better, and you're going to look at a whole another thing where healthcare costs can go down because of this. I think it's reasonable to say that could be a long-term effect, but we're looking short-term, and it's not always going to come out.
So, like the food pyramid, did you view the book as sort of a generalized approach to what he personally thought created fat? Because from what you said, it was, it doesn't work for everybody. Some
right.
people might, cut out gluten. Some people might cut out carbs. And, did you just view it as a research book or another diet book?
In the end, I still think it's a diet book. Because, I mean, why we get fat? title of it right there. However, is there a lot of research in it? Yes. So that's, but like I said before, you could find research to go one way or the other for just about anything. But the research doesn't matter to the individual at the same time. Because for you, I might throw you 100 studies that say you need to eat low carb, or for you, Ross, like it might be that
I'll eat tons of carbs.
right, and
Look at me.
you are super skinny. So, but could it just? It's going to depend on the person. At the most basic level, it still is going to come down to the individual. So whatever they eat, they have to be able to say, hey, this is making me fat, or this is making me lose weight, this is making me feel good, everything like that.
But also a healthy balance of exercise is what he's saying. He says that in the book.
It says pretty much exercise is overrated, in the simplest terms, because you got to look at all the LPL, HSL, all those hormones are going to be affected by exercise. The thing is, sort of other things such as growth hormone and that, which doesn't go into in the book too much. So I think that's another thing that needs to be addressed. Is he touched on some of the hormones, he didn't touch on all of the hormones that exercise will affect. So his thing is though, and I do agree that your nutrition needs to be more dialed in than your exercise program does.
So just to feed off on what he was just saying, so let's not use you as an example, but so like a skinny person though, right? Just because they're skinny, okay, great, they're not fat, but are they healthy?
Right.
So you could eat, I mean, all the McDonald's in the world and maybe you'll gain a pound.
Yeah, the
or
guy that
whatever,
eats a Big Mac a day for every meal,
but are
he's
you
still a
healthy?
twig.
Right.
But,
But,
yeah.
so I just okay.
No.
So just more of a comment and then a question. Comment, I just want to reiterate that I do agree with you as far as everybody's an individual. So like one person might be able to just eat a pear for a snack, like Gary Taubes maybe, and be fine. Like have no side effects, nothing. But then like I might eat a pear
Right.
and feel terrible
Yeah.
because I didn't eat it with any protein or fat. Okay. So my question is more about heart disease. We're going to get into this a little bit later, but so you're saying that heart disease is caused by high carbs.
Yeah.
Okay, so
And it's not necessarily going to be high carbs. I think it's going to be more of the dirty
refined.
carbs, pretty much.
Okay, so the breads and the pastas. Okay, so can you explain what's in those carbs that leads to the heart disease? And then two, just from what I've read on things, I thought it was more the vegetable oils and the high omega-6s that lead to the heart disease rather than the carbs.
Right. It's going to be all of those. And
So the combination.
yeah, I think this would be like a bigger topic then if we get into like
yeah.
cholesterol, or like heart disease.
So just talk about the carbs then. Like what's in
carbs.
them.
When you have a refined carb, it has to be broken down, and that's why it's refined. So you're going to lose all the vitamins, all the minerals that were normally in there,
Okay.
and now you have to add them back in. So you're going to be getting everything's going to be synthetic. First of all, that's added back in. That's going to be one of the problems. As far as like any then liquids go to, like any juices, any beer, anything like that. Well, if it's anything besides like you just squeeze the orange yourself, that's just going to be sugar water. All the vitamins, all the nutrition, pretty much everything's going to be wiped out of it too. So you're looking now at just straight sugar going into you. Now you're looking at that whole cycle starting again. Because with everything else, like when you're eating spinach, when you're eating the pear, whatever, you're still going to have a higher water content, which is going to help slow the digestion down. It's not going to be just a free release of everything, jack up your blood glucose. You're also going to have some fiber in there too, which is going to help to slow down the digestion. All these things kind of come into play. So it's more that these are going to cause such a rapid rise and just have no
Like your
nutritive value besides just pure glucose. That's it.
So, just really quick, is it the gluten though in those carbs because like that has that inflammatory effect that makes people fat as well?
Gluten's gonna be a whole nother topic.
Right.
So we'll just wrap it up for this month, and we'll see you guys next month. All right.